hospitals keep humans alive on 8-hour shifts. We can do that.
We can do it.
We've just got to, I now have a compulsion to seek the next thing that makes me uncomfortable because I know that I have been incredibly lucky to have sponsors along the way in my career that saw things in me that I certainly didn't.
Every major infrastructure project begins with a promise to connect communities, to strengthen economies, to create something that will serve people for generations. But between that promise and the finished asset sit thousands of decisions. What materials will we use? What will we prioritise? What are we prepared to change? And what consequences are we willing to leave behind? For too long, sustainability has been treated as a specialist conversation, considered after the commercial design and delivery decisions have already been made. Hollie Hynes believes it belongs at the centre of them. Her career has moved from environmental expertise into roads leadership, commercial strategy, and enterprise-wide influence. That breadth has given her a rare understanding of what meaningful change actually requires. Inside a major construction business, because ambition alone does not transform an industry, change happens when sustainability becomes part of how projects are designed, procured, won, and delivered. In this episode of Building Doors, we explore how Hollie has built influence beyond her technical discipline, why responsible decision-making must begin earlier, and what it will take to turn sustainability commitments into practical action across construction and infrastructure. Ultimately, this is a conversation about legacy, not simply the assets we leave behind, but the quality of the decisions we make while we're building them. Welcome to the Building Doors podcast. Yay! Welcome to the Building Doors podcast.
Thank you. Lovely to be here. We're colour coordinated.
We are. It's like we matched.
I know.
I think we've been trying to get this to happen for a while, but life's been so busy.
It
so
has.
I'm glad we finally got there.
Yeah, me
And
too.
I think you've got to be one of the first guests to get me chocolate. So I want to give you a shout out for that. You now, I think you're my favourite because you bought me chocolate. So it's very kind of you.
Love language. Fine.
You know me. So I just wanted to, I guess, get stuck into it. I know that you've just had a really interesting career, and some of the things I want to talk about, or where I always like to start, is where it started. Like, I'm always interested why people make those initial career decisions or go in a particular direction. So tell me about where you kind of decided to pursue the career path you have today.
Yeah, sure. I was at a really decent little crossroad, which sometimes you don't know you're at until you've got that vision of hindsight. But it was out of uni, and I had been actually did a dual degree and as a side studied genetics. And I had been offered by one of my genetics professors at uni to do a study on a fish species that was in Fiji, which, as far as doing scientific lab work and studies and trips to Fiji goes, it's pretty phenomenal. But at the same time, I was really keen to kind of put what I'd been studying around environmental engineering into practice. And I was really toing and froing between the two. And I went along to 2 interviews, and one was in a design house that's since been acquired. And one was with Leighton Contractors at the time. And the 2 interviews were just so eye-opening for me in a way that I didn't understand what my purpose was until I weighed the 2 interviews up afterwards. And there was a huge part for me that I realised I wanted to work with people. I wanted to be boots on ground. I love the complexity of influencing people, of working alongside people, of high-fiving people when you get things right, of working through hard things together as a team. And the other opportunity, and that kind of spoke really well to the graduate program at Leighton Contractors and doing big, I guess, road projects at the time, compared to another opportunity that was more site surveys for 4 or 5 weeks of the year, coming back, writing reports. And they were very conscious to say, are you okay to go out on site for 3 or 4 weeks of the year? And I was a bit shocked that it was only 3 or 4 weeks of the year. So it really, in those early days, helped me, without knowing, narrow in on the things that I quite like before getting my feet dirty in the actual job. So I led with the people piece and the complexity piece before anything else.
What was it about, you mentioned knowing yourself. So, and it's so hard, I think, when people are making a career move, and even now when you make career decisions, it's about knowing yourself and what guides you. And as you kind of said, like you felt a sense of purpose with what you chose. How did you know?
It's funny you ask that because does anyone know themselves when they're coming out of uni as like a 20, 21-year-old?
And that's why I'm like, how did you know to go that path? Or was it just like rolling the dice a bit and going, this feels more like me?
Yeah, there was an element of that. And I think I put that knowing myself and purpose piece with the rearview mirror of hindsight.
Yeah,
and at the time I was probably following my gut and going, oh, that one feels very safe and in an office and sometimes out on site. And this one feels a bit dynamic and often out on site. And I know how I like learning. I am a kinesthetic learner. I'm a doer. I pick up by doing and on a construction site and contributing to construction projects. I feel like doing, especially at that stage in your career, is on site. And that's where I was going to get the most bang for buck.
And what about, and fast forward from there, so you went with your gut. Then there's all these career decisions you make along the way. Were there points where you were uncomfortable but you stepped into it?
Wow, yes, absolutely. Almost nearly every time I've done a career pivot. And I now have a compulsion to seek the next thing that makes me uncomfortable because I know that I learn so well when I'm climbing that hill of the unknown, and my brain, it activates and sparks things in my brain that probably when I'm in BAU mode, I'm maybe not as curious and I'm maybe not as searching for what are the questions I'm not asking? Who are the people I'm not tapping? When I'm in the unknown, I cast a net so wide to people to find the people that are best placed to help me come up with solutions and to help me analyze a situation and understand what I do know and what I don't know. Because most importantly is knowing the things that you don't know and or knowing the unknown unknowns and how to get answers from that is what I really like to do. And so, yeah, that's why I cast that net and go out to people.
And so you're growing, you're feeling uncomfortable, and then there comes a point in time when you know that you're ready for that next phase of growth. How did you seek out the challenge? Was that an act? Did you feel within yourself, I'm ready for something new, I need to create more? Because you stayed within the one organization for a long time too. So It's interesting about how do you create that next challenge or find those opportunities internally too?
Yeah, I think this is an answer of two parts. I'll answer your question in a tick, but it also opens up a really important part of business and part of giving back to the world in sponsorship. And I have been incredibly lucky to have sponsors along the way in my career that saw things in me that I certainly didn't know I had myself, that pushed me to see my potential and probably spoke really well about me behind closed doors and in rooms that I wasn't in, which, comes from a connection piece. It comes from being good at your job. For a long time, I thought I was just lucky. And now I've kind of got to that stage of my career. I look back and I go, actually, I earned that sponsorship and I earned that trust. But it is a really great thing to have. So I'd implore people to make sure that you're having those conversations. Make sure you're grabbing a coffee with people. Make sure you're connecting with people away from just work as well, because you never know where that sponsorship comes from. And that's different to mentorship. And I can only see that from looking back. But to answer the question about my appetite to grow, the first couple of big pivots I did were not necessarily structured. And they weren't necessarily, and I certainly didn't apply for a job that was a big stretch. I happened to be in a business at Langer Rourke as it was growing. It had entered the market a few years before I joined. It was it was finding itself in Australia, and it was also on a growth projection. And I filled a lot of gaps. I did a lot of things that were not in my position description. I did them without even knowing I was doing them. I loved that because that filled that piece that I love around learning. And I spread myself across any of those gaps wherever they existed. So I was kind of helping out. I was brought on for a particular job, but very quickly I was helping on a number of others back in head office on tenders. And that evolved into me being quite young in what was a regional leadership role in my function, and just had the opportunity then to grow with the business. And then that gave me exposure to different people and different opportunities. And then some of that sponsorship came in, opportunities to go on development courses within Laing O'Rourke's that then give you broader exposure to other parts of the business, but also exposure to exec. And yeah, the rest is kind of history.
One of the things you mentioned there, which I think is really interesting, and you touched on going back into one of your comments, was around you did a lot of things that weren't specifically in your role. You took initiative, and then it's interesting from that you start to see the sponsorship, right? So I think that's a really important thing, especially for young people coming through in their careers to hear and listen, is you didn't wait for the opportunities to come up. You actively took initiative to take on more than was what was in your role description. Talk to us more about that.
Yeah. Maybe it's a personality thing. It's also a balance about not pushing into other people's space and upsetting people. So there's always those considerations. But for me, it's just if there's a job that needs doing, you do it.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's part of my family value chain of how I was kind of brought up as well. But I also adore being part of a team that's all running in the same direction. And when those gaps exist, it's like a pothole at first. If you get to it quickly, it's not so bad. But after a couple of weeks, it's affecting the suspension of the cars that are driving over it. And for me, that impacts a team, and it might be the 1%ers, but it helps a team move in the right direction and not get caught back later. And it was a really nice way for me to get involved in different things, learn, show value, but also just pick things up as we ran. And there's nothing nicer when someone just says, "Oh, thanks so much for helping out with that." And you just feel like you've done a little bit more than the day job. So.
Yeah, and that is that's how you stand out, right? Like if you are willing to go that little extra 1%. And then if you have a team that does that a little bit of extra 1%, it makes a massive difference overall. One of the things I want to talk to you about is getting everybody, I think the challenge of leadership as well is getting everybody to go in that one direction and getting a cohesive team in the project world as well to all be wanting to do that extra 1%. What have you learned through your leadership journey about getting people on the bus?
Yes. The most important thing for me, and it sounds very textbook, but I've lived it and then had the opportunity to kind of learn some of the theory behind it. But the most important thing is the vision, is the why, is why you're doing it, and to tap. And I think the critical thing that I've learned is different people will show up with their individual whys. And it's one thing to set a vision that a company might have or a project might have or a function might be working towards for the greater benefit of a business. But you've got to know your people. You've got to know what makes them tick and what gives them purpose and what gives them something back. So tapping into that as you're asking them, do you want a ticket on this bus, is probably the most important part. And that's the hardest part. That's the part that takes time. It takes trust. It takes understanding of people, and it's not simple. In a big team, you don't have hours upon hours to get to know every intricate detail of a person. But as a leader, you should fundamentally know the people around you that might be reporting into you, and then if they've got layers that you need to activate, you should be able to curate the vision to what makes them tick.
Yeah.
And if you can't, I don't think maybe you're tapping into your full leadership potential.
Yeah. So for you, it's also about, connecting with them as an individual as opposed to a collective. Because I think so often we're like, oh, everybody on the project, this is the vision, these are our values.
Yeah.
But then you got to understand, well, why is the individual there?
Why are they there?
Yeah.
100%. And it's really important to do the vision, the business strategy and the vision. That is so important. It's business sustainability. It's critical, and it gives people things to lean into and get excited about. But unless you're tapping in at a bit of a personal level as well, I think you're missing an opportunity.
For you personally, what's your why?
My why is I love construction, and I love it for a number of reasons. It connects and enables society. They're really complex projects and things that we do at huge scale that when you break it down, there's solutions to. It takes such a variety of people to complete a project, a huge variety of skill sets, of different styles, and a breadth of experience. And that people piece to me. So I think the complexity enabling society, and then the people piece of it takes such a diverse group of people to come together to solve really complex problems that aren't always just the end output or the end asset that you walk away from. There's multitude of problems every day, or challenges, which come with opportunities every day. It's grey and it's a bit ambiguous, but pulling people together to head to the same direction and to use the best of those people to help you squeeze through the little gaps that you start to see as success is a really wonderful feeling.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think the interesting part you speak about, and the undercurrent of everything, it seems that the people side of it and seeing what's possible from people is such a key driver for you, and has been from the start. Tell me about sustainability and some of the other aspects of your role as well. So tell me about how that's grown and been shaped over your career.
Oh, yeah. So when I first graduated uni, sustainability was not a terminology that was overly used in construction. I think its name, by its very nature, explains itself. But it lives in a number of different parts of sustainable business, sustainability when it comes to ESG, sustainability of people's careers. There's so much that goes to it. Obviously, when I first stepped into sustainability, it was I did a wonderful project with my first job out of uni that had a phenomenal leader that was a lady called Rose Boyd, who's no longer with us, but she left a huge impact on the industry, and she was driving this concept of sustainability. And I was an enviro engineer kind of on grad program, and lent in with her and tried to understand what this meant. And I really picked up in early days that it's not a thing that sustainability people do to have good outcomes on either environmental impact, governance, social impact. It's actually what everybody, I know this sounds cliche because this is what a lot of functions need people to own and run with, but it's in everybody's power to make decisions with the money that they're spending, the materials that they're buying, or the activities that they're doing, decisions that go just beyond answering that scope. And so you can still spend the same amount of money, but you could do it with a company that gives greater benefit to a disadvantaged community. Or you could still spend the same amount of money, but actually just really for a little while longer consider the types of materials that you're using or the specification that you're working against to get a better outcome for society. And so I really saw that it lived in everyone's world. But like so many things, we like to label a small group of people and kind of say, that's your job to kind of champion and bring it to life. And so how it shaped me is I've always been passionate about the outdoors. I think that came through earlier about the environment. It's how I grew up. And yet I love construction and engineering, which can have a big impact, both positive and negative, on the environment. So I found myself with the wonderful opportunity to be able to discuss sustainability whilst doing big mega projects. And it helped shape my thinking, my early thinking, into this is not something that can't be solved by the people that are around us. We don't need a whole new group of people to come in and tell us what to do. We've got the answers here because the brains that are in a construction project can solve anything. So
the interesting part I want to explore around sustainability, one of the things that I think, I've been reflecting on a lot lately and I'd love to chat with you about is how the systems we implement, there's almost like a psychology behind systems. The way that we implement things drives certain behaviors, right? So if we look at, we want to make profit on a project, we tender, we want to be the cheapest price, there's going to drive behaviors, and then the people within those projects are driven to make money. I want to talk to you about how do you see, we've got all this infrastructure to deliver as well, but are the systems we've got in place, through procurement and delivery driving the right behaviors, or are there improvements there we can make as well around sustainability is a perfect example?
Yeah. I'd say there's always improvement for so many things. And this is definitely an area where I'd say there's improvement opportunities around how to bring this to life at all stages of a project. And really critically, sustainability if we're talking environmental, social, governance style sustainability, it lives in every aspect of the project, but it has its greatest, highest level of the curve of impact at the start, at planning, at consideration, at what is the asset. And then once that's been decided, where's it going? And then big pieces around not just the CapEx spend for the infrastructure to be built, but then also the OpEx considerations around the operational and life maintenance of the project. So that's probably where the biggest material impact can come from. And we in construction as a contractor don't often get a huge opportunity to have an impact in that space. Yeah. However, sometimes with certain projects, and as we're seeing the opportunity to work with clients on programs of work, we are seeing little opportunities to get in and have that influence, be it from a construction methodology or a productivity or a MMC opportunity. It's also there from a sustainability opportunity.
Yeah.
So that is where the biggest opportunity exists. Once it gets to the traditional way that if you think of core construction activities, where we turn up at, a good year or so before tender and we're talking to clients and understanding, what value we can give to that project and how we might win that piece of work. We start thinking about it there, and then we go into procurement. And obviously you're then scored on, how you respond to those procurement questions and your previous work. We have some wonderful clients, often our state-based, like TMRs or Transport for New South Wales, that are, specifying some really stretchy, great sustainability targets. And they use sometimes external rating tools, and they use sometimes internal metrics that they're working towards, which is great. And then we have some tricky situations other times where it might be silent on sustainability, and that makes you that's probably where the importance is to have internal processes around what do we stand for as a business, what will we deliver as our BAU, how will we measure it, and how do we give that back. So and then there's that fine line. We do a bit of influence in our function as well, which is getting up front with clients and starting to talk about if you truly want sustainability to show up in a really material way, which is sometime, as we are seeing with the emergence of the Australian Sustainability Reporting Standards, a new accounting standard linked to sustainability, which is greater than just counting carbon. It's more about climate risks and opportunities that will happen in a future state scenario. We need to have that as part of the traditional value for money conversation, because currently a lot of clients just naturally will lean to time, cost, quality. And that is a really great way to start comparing apples for apples and to be able to understand what a contractor or a team is proposing and score you associated with that. If we don't start moving a concept of carbon or a concept of climate resilience or a concept of social into that true valuation and it become a material part of the scorecard, then it's at risk of being kept in that silo of a function to manage.
Yeah.
Which still, compared to 20 years ago, is having wonderful outcomes.
Yeah.
But I think it could go further to be the heart and core, to be part of the heart and core of how we all show up and how we all go to business. And I think that is where the magic could happen. If it was of similar importance, it would then perhaps show up in every part of the procurement process versus a standalone sustainability returnable.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes complete sense also when you explain it that way. And I hadn't actually thought of it in that context of where it appears and where, if it's in a lot earlier and it's evaluated earlier, then it becomes what's also important from the outset. So it's a really, has there been a time from a sustainability? I love to talk about sometimes, I think it's really nice for people to see success or see where it's gone really well and where you felt proud. Has there been a moment where you've seen something embedded or you've reflected on a piece of work in the sustainability space where you've that had a massive impact?
Oh, yeah, there's been a lot, which is why you keep showing up. I guess for me, there are a couple. One was quite macro in the sense that I've just been able to witness the maturity curve of sustainability, not just internally with, you used to spend the first half of any conversation you had as a sustainability professional, the first half of any conversation that you had with anyone explaining why you needed to have the conversation and justifying it. Yeah. And then the back half of the conversation was the influence without power and come and help me and get on the bus. Yeah. Now it's we have to prioritize our time because people are coming at us in so many different ways. New requirements are coming at us, like the ASRS that I just explained. So that general maturity around what sustainability is, that there are contractual requirements. The company that I work at, it's core to our strategy. So we've got a really meaty strategic direction around this. And I have really enjoyed that. And I've enjoyed watching our clients go on that same journey. So it's not been a disjointed thing where we're trying to, I'm trying to influence over in Lang O'Rourke, let's do these great things, but no one over here wants it. We had a really fabulous convergence of, I spent a good couple of years building the sustainability strategy off a hypothesis that sustainability was coming and we were going to see it in contracts because our clients were going to bring it in and we were going to see it in the boardroom, and here it is. And so we were just beautifully positioned to be able to tackle those things. So at a macro level, I've seen it show up in ways on jobs that speak to even the hardiest of project directors and project teams that are used to that time, cost, quality mentality. They have to look at sustainability because now it's contractual requirements and it's linked to KRAs, it's linked to dollar outputs, which has been phenomenal. So as a macro piece, that's great. There are many kind of more here and now examples. We've had wonderful examples where we were able to, make sure that we delivered what our clients needed, but by using wonderfully diverse groups of people that otherwise wouldn't normally have a start in the construction industry. We are able to make sure that the operations of, train assets and stations are running at almost net positive because of some of the wonderful energy initiatives that are put into the design that speak to the OPEX of those stations. Some really phenomenal things, even down to accessibility and making sure that we're considering everything for all abilities. There's been some really wonderful outputs.
Excellent. One of the things I want to go back to learning more about you, because I find it really interesting, in a really good way, how you've taken challenges, taken the next one, and then looked at the opportunities and had this thirst for growth. What can sometimes come with that, having worked in the industry for a couple of decades myself, is have you ever been underestimated? So, sometimes you can go into a room or into a role and there's a sense of, being underestimated. It's something I'm curious if you've encountered that and been able to overcome that too.
Yes, of course I have. And you know who probably underestimates me the most consistently is myself. The concept of imposter syndrome. I've had that, I've battled that, and I don't know that it ever fully goes away. But I've learnt to kind of embrace it in a certain way and work with it. But on the other side, away from just your internal thoughts, I have no doubt that there have been people that have thought, I don't know why she's in this role or why that announcement happened with her in the role. And the roads GM role, leading a business to grow our roads portfolio is a classic example of that. And I say to people when I'm talking to them about squiggly careers and about opportunities and taking opportunities, even if you're not sure that was part of your career path, there was nobody more surprised than me that I had a phone call from our wonderful clients and markets director who was reshaping the front end of the business and said, Hollie, I've watched what you do and I would love you to come and join my team. Nobody was more surprised than me. But I have no doubt that when that was announced, there would have been whiplash moments from people going, oh, I wonder how that works. I like to think that people would say, would trust the person that puts you in that role and also, have probably seen your work elsewhere. And then I like to think that when you turn up, it's how you show up. And I guess it was what we spoke about earlier, which is the first thing, it's a bit of vulnerability, but the first thing that I kind of would turn up with is knowing what I know, but also very clearly articulating what I don't know and going and finding the right people, bringing them in the room to help solve those problems and sharing why I've got them in the room. So, yeah, I think there would definitely have been moments being underestimated. But then, your outcomes kind of speak for itself. And
sounds like you just got to back yourself as well. Like I feel like even though it seems like you felt the imposter syndrome, but you're like, that's not going to hold me back,
No, but I did find some really great people who then probably stepped into that mentor space for me as well. So grabbed some really wonderful people that had arguably done it before. They weren't you can tell if someone's threatened by you or annoyed. You grab the people that are your champions. And yeah, I think I've also had really lovely conversations with people that have since said, yeah, that was a really big surprise. And I can see why the business wanted you in the role, but didn't know that they'd be, brave enough to take that step, or didn't know that you'd be brave enough to take that step. And so I guess in those conversations, you're having a little acknowledgement that perhaps they were like, oh, I'm not sure where this is going to go. And then, history kind of is then written based on performance. So,
isn't it nice when someone gives you a little nudge? Like It's the unspoken thing. And I'm going to put it out there. So many, like I was reflecting literally in the car on the way this morning. One of my clients, who was actually the person that told me to start the business, had also recently told me to get back into music. And he's like, "Oh, so you've been doing so much music, it's fantastic." And I was like, "You gave me that nudge. In fact, you've given me a lot of nudges towards doing things that stretch and change and grow for us." And we often talk about male allies, or we talk about, like, it is literally, and I've worked with some amazing women, but it's a lot of the men that I've worked with have been, "Come on, put yourself out there, give it a go," like. So for you, did you have those nudges as well? So there's the sponsors that, we talk about sponsorship when you're not in the room, they'll talk about you. I've also liked those people. I also liken those people, and some of my friends are those people too, but in the workplace that are just like, "I think you can do it."
Absolutely. Gold dust.
So good.
Gold dust.
The industry's full of them.
Full of them. Yeah. And gold dust for you, but gold dust for culture.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It is like, you can't buy that. That doesn't come off the shelf.
You can't make people be that kind of person.
No.
But there's so many of them in this industry.
Yes, there are.
It's like this hard thing to explain to people.
Yes. And I specifically remember one of those moments. There were probably many little ones along the way, but a really big one that hit me between the eyes when one of our general managers at the company at Lang O'Rourke came and said to me, probably 7 or 8 years ago, came and said to me out of nowhere, he was in Brisbane, and he grabbed me and he said, "Have you ever thought about putting your hand up for that role they've just announced?" And I was like, genuinely shocked. I was like, no. Why? Why would you say that? And I'm like, for all of these reasons that I started prattling off.
I love that.
Here are the
I can't do
reasons.
it for this reason and this reason.
Correct. And he just looked at me so miffed, and he was like, "Hollie, you would be brilliant in that role." And I think there's a really big distinction that comes as you work through your career. And it's not just about working vertically. It's not all about climbing to the top. There's those moments though where, because leadership comes in horizontal ways and leadership comes in many different forms, but there's a moment where you stop being the SME, the subject matter expert, and you start having to grapple and lead. And that was probably at the time where I was still a bit subject matter expert, and getting a nudge from someone saying, "You can jump over that hurdle and step into leadership." He didn't articulate it like that. It was "You could do that. You'd be great in that role. Here are all the things that you'd be great at." And he told me. And what I then did was went and picked about 5 or 6 people across the country that I'd worked with, and literally picked up the phone and said, "Hey, really, really weird one for you today. But what would you think if I put my hand up for this role?"
Oh, clever.
And I had the most indulgent, wonderful 5 or 6 phone calls, because people just were like, "Oh my God," and told me how wonderful they thought I was, which was just so nice, and how capable they thought I was. And it was really lovely. And I kind of drilled down into, well, why? What do you think makes you think that I can do these things? And they then told me. And I don't think I think we're all so busy and so, there's probably a whole thing to unpack around feedback in any way, shape or form in this day and age.
Yeah.
But we're probably so busy we don't always stop, and reflection's so important. And I guess part of reflecting is knowing how you go and how you perform. And so having those phone calls were this little incredible moment for me where I realized I had all these backers in the business, and they can't all be mad. They can't all be completely siloed and just be thinking I might be great. Maybe they were onto something. And it was the first time I really stopped and thought, okay, well, what can I do? And then I started critically analysing my skills, and I thought, instead of selling the list of all the things I can't do, maybe I should look at that and flip it and kind of think, what have I done? What can I do? And what's not too far out of my stretch? So I ended up going for the role. which was an internal GM role. And in the interview process, I really understood how powerful it was to walk in and knowing what you had, knowing the impact that you have on people and knowing the impact that you have on the business. And part of the conversation that I had was I picked up the phone and spoke to a number of people, and that was just such a catalyst in me starting to look up and go, maybe this is the next phase of my career, and look up and out. I didn't get the role, but it was the most I guess, impactful experience that I went through, if I think of a pivotal moment that made me go, I can do that. And I think I'm hungry for it. So
that is such a good example. And to be brave enough in a good way to solicit feedback from other people, gosh, we don't do that.
No.
And it's so important. It's so important to understand, because we don't see ourselves the way others see us either, because we're getting on with it,
Yes.
And you're right, it's busy. It's a busy job and
Yes.
busy industry.
Yes.
So with all of this in mind, what's the legacy? I always ask this question. Everyone goes, oh, it's such a big question. What's the legacy you hope to leave for your work in this sector?
Oh, wow. I hope to leave a legacy where the industry understands that. Oh, let me just think about this.
Yeah,
one for a tick.
think about it.
Yeah, okay. I guess the legacy that I really want to leave is one that lets you understand that you can show up, be your true self, bring your whole self to work, do the right thing. No, I need to think about it a bit more. I'm sorry.
we can come back to it.
I've got to think about that one.
It's a big one.
I think it still centers around people. I think the legacy that I would like to leave is to know that we've given the people that have put their hand up to deliver the critical infrastructure that our society needs, have been given every opportunity that they could possibly have to be the best that they can be. And that's how you show up at work. There's a cultural element to that. There's opportunities. There's really working through the concept of equality and what it is to have a diverse workforce and diverse leadership. And that's not just at a gender level. It's to really make sure people can come to work, be themselves, and give the best version of themselves to work. That's what I would really like to see. And then kind of similarly in the output of what we leave behind, the assets that we leave behind, that they are truly meaningful for the society that we are serving and the money that we're spending, that we've done it in a way that considers more than time, cost, quality.
Yeah.
And that we, I think really importantly, kind of change the game a little bit, because we are an industry that's done the same thing for a long time and kind of expected a different result, which is a definition of insanity. And we're at a really big productivity crisis at the moment. And I'm fortunate enough to be with a company whose founder is very, very rooted in wanting to do things differently for the right reasons. It's wanting to do things differently because why should our workers be walking around with a 9-kilo weight belt every day when there's got to be a different way to bring that to life? And does kind of changing the game a little bit instead of just doing the same thing have a very big legacy opportunity associated with it. And I think it does, but it's going to take all levels to kind of pull together to understand the power of what offsite manufacturing, what innovation, and what I guess new ways of construction could be. And sustainability innately lives in that, and kind of the concept of a new work paradigm lives in that, of people not having to go through as much stress to get jobs done.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah. That's great. I love that. And I love, I'm excited about it. Everyone goes, oh, you're worried about, the work coming. I'm excited. I think I'm like you. I feel like when there's a challenge, we as an industry, we rise to meet that challenge and we make it work and we figure it out. And there is a challenge that we've got coming, but that we have so much available to us now if we just open our minds up to what else is possible in different ways of working and delivering the work that we need to as well.
Absolutely.
I always love asking fun rocket round questions, and I got bored with the ones that I used to do, so I just make them up now.
Okay.
What's a hobby that you enjoy that not many people know?
Oh, okay. So recently I've hit that typical midlife crisis and I've become a runner. Yeah, so I've been running. So that's been fun.
I love that. Yeah.
I think it's also a sport that fits around the chaos of kids. You can get up early. You don't need a gym, that kind of thing. But I was a surf boat rower back in the day and love all things surf lifesaving and the beach. So yeah, one of those two.
And because I find this one interesting too, what have you learned about the work-life juggle?
Oof. I think it's that big piece around prioritizing, like really getting clear for yourself what you need to do in the day to relieve that juggle bleeding into each other. So if you've got priorities, like I'm someone that likes to get up early, I like to prioritize the early part of my day for my hardest tasks. And that means that come, the end of the day, if I want to get home to the kids or if I need to be somewhere for sport, I can because I've done, I've cleared the bulk of it.
Yeah.
So prioritization. I think the other thing is you're not replaceable at home. You're just not. It's that I've recently kind of held on to the glass ball and rubber ball concept, which is some things are glass balls and if you drop them, they break and you can't put them back together. And some things are rubber balls and if you drop them, they bounce back. And I've taken that mentality in the last few months into my role and it's helped me really ask my team to get around certain things. And I guess, carve things off for people and delegate or bring people in to give them exposure and experience. So I think there's different ways to skin the cat. But it's dynamic and I've got little people that I've got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old.
Oh, your kids are similar age. My kids 8 and 11.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
They're primary age. They love us. They want to hang around us now.
Hang around us.
My friends have teenagers. I'm like, I don't want to know about that.
Yes, and I think I spent so long in survival mode when they were young.
Yes.
Genuinely tricking myself that I've just got to get through this physical period and then it's not that they won't need me so much, but then I can go back from starting at 7:30 and finishing at 6 kind of thing. And that's just not true. The pivot is they need you in different ways.
Yeah, they do.
And school does not suit society.
Oh my gosh, so many emails, hobbies, extra things.
Yes.
It's just like another job managing. No one tells you that.
No one tells you that.
No one tells you that because they're like, oh, okay, daycare, great. There'll be school. They'll be in there every day. It'll be so much easier. Yeah, there's the complexity with what else you have to do with that side of things as well. So.
There's a bit of outsourcing too. I've got to be honest. Like I have to outsource some of the logistics with our kids. It's either before or after school care or a an au pair or a nanny or like whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Because and then you have that guilt because you're not the one there with them, but you've just got to roll with it and take the good when it's there and roll with the trickier times.
And I think as well, you've got to define your own definition of normal.
Yes.
Like I found as well coming through in this generation, like I came from a stay-at-home mother, right? So it was like I came through and I was like, I don't even know how to navigate being a parent and things like that. So we all came from a different reality.
Yes.
And never more has it been complex what we're navigating.
Yes.
We're navigating two parents often working in the house, as well as sometimes the female is the primary earner and like all of these new things that we've never navigated before.
It's really tricky. It's really
bloody tricky. I'm going to just say it to everyone that's listening. It's not easy, and I think, I don't know. I think we just try, you just try and make the best decisions at the time.
Yes.
With the resources you have.
Yes. I was having a conversation with someone just the other day about that exact conundrum where we're in a spread of a couple of generations that are really having to grapple with New World Order, which I call it, which is double income required, you've got the expenses of like trying to have a life, have a property, have a house, whatever it might be, have security for your family. The cost of kids is wild. We'll remind them of that when they're older. And the navigation of, like, for me, my partner, my husband is, incredible. He's 50-50, hands-on. And I couldn't do what I do without him and I genuinely being a partnership. And then I sometimes think he's in this new world order, navigating what it's like to be a guy that's doing that, coming from, like, whilst it's one thing for women to step into, if this is like, for women to step into doing it all, it's now another thing for a man to kind of step in and do it all as well. And
100%.
Yeah. And so I'm really grateful.
We need them.
Yes.
We need, like, parenting is, I say it all the time, unless obviously you're a single parent and you're forced to, but it's a 2-person job for me. Like,
it is.
I couldn't do it without my husband either.
Yes. Yeah. And it's, sometimes I think I can think, oh gosh, women are, like taking this like burden of change on, and then I think, well, everyone's changing.
Everyone's changing and evolving.
Yeah.
And you still have some of the, because obviously I spend a lot of time talking to men in the sector that have kids and are trying to navigate, going into a project and going, I really want to help like, I actually do drop off and pick up and on this day and this day, and I've been working in pre-contracts. What's that look like now if I'm going to Wave on the Sunshine Coast as an example, whatever project it might be. So there's this new way of navigating that the industry is going to need to meet as well, which is going to be so interesting.
Couldn't agree more, which is why I come back to when you asked me the legacy piece, I guess towards the end I got to the point of there's a different way to do what we do.
Yes.
And a different work paradigm that kind of comes with that. And it has to be there. And I often, I'm fortunate enough to work with some wonderful Queensland business leaders on the QMCA and as an advocacy organisation for the industry. And we often grapple with it. It's like the culture of how do we attract and retain talent in the industry when there's a whole digital world growing up around us and stealing engineering brains and how are we going to have enough people? And, we'll grapple with the concept of how do you keep a construction site going if you do split shifts or shared roles? Hospitals keep humans alive on 8-hour shifts.
Yep.
We can do that.
We can do it.
We've just got to think differently about it. And it just takes a little bit of creativity and the willingness to want to see it show up differently.
Well, I'm excited with you as a leader. I think, so much is possible. And it's conversations like this that just, get me really excited about where we're heading, because it is going to be momentum and it is going to be, a multiple of people that all want to do better, all want the same thing. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Pleasure.
Absolutely loved the discussion, like as I knew I would. And obviously everyone, if you like, share, subscribe. I meant to say all of that stuff. But also if there's someone that you think benefits from the episode, please share it with them. And I know you do, but do let not just me know, but also the guest what you take away from it. We absolutely love to hear the insights that you've shared back within your team. So thanks for listening.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
If this episode gave you new insights, don't let them go to waste. Take action, apply them. And if you want more insider strategies from the best in construction and infrastructure, make sure to subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the leaders who open the most doors aren't waiting for opportunities, they're building them.